I want to sort of set the stage with what does a good look like or great look like. So let's talk about the magic that happens when sales and marketing are in alignment. What does that look like, Justin?
Um, First of all, thank you for everybody being here. It's been an awesome conference. Everyone's had really good insight, so I appreciate hearing people's perspective. Um, what does it look like? I mean, it looks like, from the very start of someone joining a job, everyone and thing being on the same page. So when it comes to onboarding, the material that you ingest while you're onboarding, that being the same if you're a salesperson and if you're a marketing person. Um, you know, Identifying your ICP, that being the same for sales and marketing people. Um, the branding, the content, whether it be the content on your website or the marketing materials you're putting out there or the outreach and emails, phone calls, conferences, that being on the same page. And then, smaller things too, being aligned on your CRM, even just inputting the proper things into your CRM, marking it the same way. That can be, aligned properly. And I've seen it misaligned. And, always, always, always just feel like focusing on the North Star metric, which is revenue generated. If you can, I feel like do those things and get those things on the same page, you're at least on the path of aligning sales and marketing.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think this will sound contradictory, but it's when I feel like for salespeople, it'll be when marketing isn't so markety, and marketing people will say when sales isn't so salesy. But really, I think those do complement each other because it's when marketing and sales understand that, but are still moving in the same direction. We still understand as marketers, salespeople are trying to attain a revenue goal, and salespeople understanding the fact that marketing isn't necessarily always doing lead generation, but they're doing brand awareness that does contribute to the lead generation because you do require a good brand identity, a good tone, good messaging, everything cohesive to be able to drive leads because you need to establish that trust. So at the end of the day, it's understanding how each organization operates to be able to develop something very holistic and being able to support and collaborate with one another, providing each other with data and feedback that'll be able to help sustain both organizations as they operate, like trying to figure out their own objectives.
Yeah, I love that. What I learned from what you both said is having that commonality, that common strategy, that common language, the common goals, and working together from both the share of mind, the share of heart, and the share of wallet perspective. So if we sort of then look at sort of the opposite extreme, if that was the magic, what are the red flags that your commercial team isn't aligned? Julia?
I think sometimes it's easy for marketing to pigeonhole itself or become just on the like externally facing look like what I've heard is beautification of things, making things look pretty. You get passed off a deck and it's like, make this look nice. When really it's more than that. There's more depth to it. We're trying to build a storyline versus just a bunch of bullet points. So I think a red flag is painting yourself whole, being like, we're just surface level. No, it's more of the brand and the messaging and the storytelling we're really trying to convey here through that branding even. I think that's a big marker of, where you can find yourself fall short. Like that could be a red flag where people in sales are only coming up to you asking you for graphic design help or asking you for social media when really it's we're really here to build the brand, helping you tell the story, helping you with the materials. So when things just become about numbers and just too quantitative, like you guys are supposed to generate X number of MQLs, where are those? That at the end of the day, that doesn't really matter if the number of MQLs or the number of like beautiful things you generate at the end of the day aren't quality or aren't driving the bottom line.
Yeah. I mean, I think some red flags would be the blame game happening. Hey, this is, marketing's fault because of XYZ, or, hey, this is sales fault because, they aren't following up on the leads that we're giving them. We're all in this. It's a team sport. There's As good as Tom Brady was, if he didn't have his offensive line, he would be nothing. So you're only as good as the people that are around you. So yeah, I think there's some clear red flags if you see a constant, finger pointing amongst marketing and sales teams.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of a symptom. I also did a little bit of a LinkedIn poll and asked this question to my network. And interestingly enough, blame game did come up. But as you can see, silos was a big symptom that at least those who answered this poll felt was the red flag, where you each group defines their own strategy. Each group defines their own set of goals for the year. And you can see how that can result in a lack of alignment. But even worse yet, you can see who's at the end of that stick: the customers, the prospects. That's not the example you want to set. And that's certainly not the brand you want to convey to your target audience. Okay, so for the next question, I probably want to ask early the question that's on a lot of people's mind. How do we partner to effectively move leads from one team to another and down the pipeline, so there's more of a collaborative handshake? Justin?
Yeah, there's definitely a couple different ways. I mean, the first that comes to mind is creating active feedback loops. Whether that be for your virtual team to have a 15-minute stand-up meeting every morning, or if you are in person, having a real stand-up meeting every morning, being on the same page. Hey, what did we do yesterday to move this deal further? Hey, what did we do yesterday to generate more leads? And I don't want to reharp on this, but aligning in your CRM as well. Your CRM is pretty much your glimpse into your pipeline. So if everyone is on the same page with their CRM and where they are in the pipeline, that'll create hopefully less friction when moving things down the pipeline for both the sales and marketing teams.
I think visibility plays a big role in this. So it's important that sales understands what channels marketing is going to be generating leads through, what types of campaigns are actively running, what's coming up in the future, where can they expect these leads from? And that'll provide them with more transparency as far as, okay, timeline, how we can prepare assets, what assets are you going to be delivering for us, what is the volume and veracity and the types of leads that are we going to get funneled in at what time. But also having a channel, like we use Slack internally, and that's where all our inbound leads get funneled towards, and we can all see in one thread with the sales team and the marketing team how many inbound leads are coming, who's filling out what form, what campaign are they from. But then every week too, we also see which ones are being qualified in real time, like which ones, so sales reps will check mark which ones are in the Slack channels. They'll check mark which ones are qualified, which ones are unqualified. So that at least gives the marketing team at a surface level an easy view of, okay, these are the leads we generated, we can see this, but then we could dig down deeper into the metrics if we really want to see it. So our Slack inbound leads are connected to our HubSpot instance, that then we can see their whole profiles. It's also connected to Salesforce. I could go on about our tech stack, but that's just the short connection there. So then we can dive in deeper if we really want to see, okay, now why was this disqualified? Why was this qualified? What is the reasons? So the different reasons as far as the work, like why things get qualified or progress and convert down the pipeline, are embedded within the sales and marketing workflow. So things like why was something nurtured, we'll have like a standardized list of nurturing reasons. We'll have a standardized list of disqualified reasons. But we'll also see notes and like standardized layouts of why things progress down the funnel. It's really standardizing those methods and also providing that layer of visibility. But then also relaying back and being able to track that from a sales perspective is also asking people, okay, going back, one is looking at the dashboards too to see, okay, we generate X number of leads from a webinar from this vertical on this topic. Here are the salespeople who were assigned each of the leads. Let's see why this person, like, is there a trend as far as the number of leads that this rep disqualified, or is it more of a general trend for all the salespeople? It's understanding Is it the content an issue? Is it the sales follow-up? Where exactly within that pipeline stage is really causing a bottleneck, or if it's having to go back to marketing materials and revise things. So it can be endless, but I think having the visibility throughout the pipeline to a point where both marketing and sales can intuitively go and measure that and pinpoint what the error is, that's the biggest, that's going to be the biggest opportunity.
Yeah, I love that transparency through dashboards and transparency through an agreement of continuous improvement. So staying on this topic of transparency and dashboards, Julia, which single metric best unites the sales and marketing team?
I feel like that's a trick question. So I really can't give one, and I'm sorry. I know that's a cop out. So some will say pipeline, market generated pipeline. I think, yes, that is biggest as far as business impact and what sales want to see and what marketing ultimately wants to see as well, because more money means better business, job stability, your product is doing well. But I think when really thinking about it, a good metric that I like to see, and we can actually unify not just the C-suite level of sales, but also like each individual contributor within sales and marketing, is like customer logos. That is the one exciting metric, like number of customer logos or new customer logos, that I think really unites both the sales and marketing team, because it's like we have traction, we're doing well, we can use these logos to promote ourselves, because when you see a big logo, another customer sees that big logo too, and it gives you that authority. So I think that's one really exciting one. So it's like case studies, new logos on the website. So that's, new logos are a good metric.
Yeah, I love that, the adoption journey, right? And that's a great example of where marketing may start that adoption journey. They then overlap marketing and sales and service and customer service and customer experience, work together to pull through that adoption journey, and then sales brings home the money, as they say. I did another LinkedIn poll on this same topic, and it isn't a cop-out, Julia, to not be able to pinpoint one specific metric. More people agreed with the fact that total qualified pipeline is a little bit more of a stronger metric to unify sales and marketing, but it was also followed by lead to customer rate and close to won revenue. So I think that the real take-home message around metrics is there has to be a sales and marketing agreement. Let's pick 3, let's pick 5. What makes the most sense based on our current go-to-market strategy? So Justin, we know that alignment between sales and marketing can be cultural and structural. How do you build a culture where sales and marketing can work together?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, it starts from the top. A lot of chief business officers, chief commercial officers, chief marketing officers, they're not doing the day-to-day tasks that a lot of your marketing team is doing, that a lot of your sales team is doing. But if you can have somebody that, means what they say and says what they mean, whether that be assisting somebody on the sales team with a client visit, or whether that be, getting with the marketing team and really working on some important content they're pouring out. I think if you have that, unifying factor being the ultimate boss who everyone reports into, if that person is going out and doing a good job of, putting themselves out there, being visible, obviously externally, but also internally with the employees they have there, they're really going to kind of set the tone, set the example, and kind of create that culture that can help not only align sales and marketing, but ultimately, generate more revenue, push the business forward. So yeah, I think the leader that you have in place is really important for that.
Yeah, it's walking the talk, right? And whether you have one commercial leader or whether you have a head of sales and a head of marketing, especially in that scenario, the two leaders walking that talk and emulating the behavior that they want the rest of the group to display as well. Julia, what have you seen from a cultural perspective?
I think it's definitely that collaboration and everyone going in the same direction. You know, marketing is marketing the right thing and sales is selling the same thing. I think going in that one, everyone's driving the ship in the same direction. I think that's huge.
And I will add too, I mean, it's kind of obvious. A lot of us probably have individual incentivized bonuses, but having a team bonus too, it makes everyone buy in, and we're all very motivated by money. So if you can do that, it probably adds an extra layer.
Yeah, I love that. I have seen that work really well, where you not only have your goals and objectives that align to the strategy, but also align to the emotional intelligence side of a team. Yeah.
I think to add to that too, if like monetary incentives isn't something that you're able to provide, I think just pure recognition in itself and drawing out things that people do well. I know it's so easy to say and people talk about it a lot. It really drives people a long way, especially when marketing goes and takes the time to recognize something a salesperson is doing on a public forum. I think that really speaks a lot for itself. Typically, when you give gratitude, it's often confined to with your organization or you forget to do it. But when you go out of the way to recognize something that sales has done, like someone on our junior sales team, they go out of their way and publish really creative social media pieces of content that is really effective for our entire brand. When we got to recognize this person for doing that, I think that incentivized that person to do really well, but it also shows the rest of the team, oh, these are the types of things that get me recognized and my hard work appreciated. So I think that is really invaluable. It's a small thing, but it really drives people, in my opinion.
Yeah, here. Yeah, there's nothing like supporting someone else. And it doesn't have to be just within your most immediate team. So Julia, I wanted to talk to you a bit about sales enablement. As a marketing leader, you're in charge of making sure that the sales team has what it needs to be successful, to not only get over the threshold, but to bring home the revenue and to continue to build loyalty with that customer. What's something you've implemented here that's really worked?
It's funny. I've tried so many different tools. We have Notion, we have Asana. There's so many content. I'll start with content. I'm sure, I mean, it's character building. I hope most of you have dealt with the issue of you produce content as a marketer and sales. It's like you work so hard, you slave away over this thing, and then like sales like, we don't have this. And we're like, well, I don't know what to tell you. It's like this shared drive and this here and this. So you have to like direct people. And then oftentimes you lose sight of that. Time passes and then it just becomes stale and just, you're like, my work is just, it means nothing. And you question your life. So what I found was like the most simple way to do it is find the medium that your sales team is used to using. And that for us was slides. So we created a Google slide deck of just hyperlinks of like, these are our case study. Here's a link. Here is our press release. Here is a link. Here's a blog link. That has just been the easiest way for them to navigate. They pin it to their bookmarks bar, and it's just, it doesn't have any branding on it. It's got like a confidentiality clause, obviously, but it's got no branding on it. It's just so straightforward. It's called the Marketing Bible. It's like, we're not religious, but it's the one source of truth they all go to. It's been the most effective. It's just hyperlinks and text.
Yeah, it shows you listened to them, right? You know, we don't want another tool. We don't want to have to go searching. Just keep it simple for us. Justin, I want to ask you about setting the sales team up for success. You've placed many sales leaders within the life sciences organizations. What conditions have to exist for a sales leader to be successful, and what role does marketing play in that?
Yeah, good question. I've placed a lot of sales leaders as well as strong individual contributors at different companies. So I have a lot of opinions on this. I mean, conditions wise, you need strong support for your sales team. You said it earlier, the sales team's meant to close, finalize business. Obviously, that capacity is different at different companies. It's going to look a lot different at a Cytiva or a Thermo type versus if you're a small, 20-man shop. Sales is probably going to have to pull in a lot more weight at that small shop. So, as much as you can, having the systems and teams in place in order to support them, having a really good project management team. That way, when they do win business, they're not having to further worry about keeping that account happy, or having a really strong marketing / inside sales team to help generate leads, so they can spend time on doing what their job title is, which is sales or business development or what have you. But just having those teams in place and emphasizing, hey, you can rely on them. So oftentimes sales guys are called lone wolves or salesmen and women. Sorry, I don't want to. But that lone wolf can only get you so far. Sometimes you got to rely on the team around you to really get stuff done.
It's a tribe effect, right? Everybody is part of that tribe. Yeah. So Julia, we've talked about how sales and marketing can stay aligned when both are hyper-focused on the customer. That's really the end game. What tips can you give the audience that help your teams to be more customer-centric?
That's a great question. I think interfacing with the customers is definitely helpful. I think being there with your sales team while they interface with customers along each step of the buyer's journey, at least, periodically through time, is super helpful. I think having those touch points and being able to be involved and share that feedback loop with the sales team and yourself and understanding the customer is mutually beneficial. I think there's things and key points that marketing can learn from sales as they interface with customers, and there's things that marketing can obviously learn, and that's not only from the customer, that's also from the way that sales interacts with the customers and the types of questions they ask, and then also seeing and listening to the types of questions that the customers can ask. I think listening to those questions, just questions being just the most powerful tool you can get as a marketing person, is invaluable as far as what kinds of content you can drive, what types of information that you can build on that will help drive the sales team and make the sales team more productive. Taking those questions and building different types of content, just understanding your messaging. Those are big things, and just the types of questions you ask and how you ask them and how you take them is important.
What about your thoughts, Justin, on tips for customer centricity?
I mean, the most important thing is identifying, who is your ideal customer and what problem are they looking to solve? If you can get aligned on those two things, both as a sales team and a marketing team, you're going to find that as long as you're doing the task at hand over and over, that as long as you're staying consistent and trying to always answer those two questions, that it'll work itself out.
Yeah, thanks. On the topic of customer centricity, our customers are scientists. Many of us here in the audience don't come from a scientific background. How can sales and marketing leaders without a scientific background still authentically engage with this audience? What are your thoughts, Justin?
I mean, I definitely fit into that bucket. I went to school and studied economics. When I was in school, I was trying to stay as far away from any science-related courses there are. So I think, what we do and who we sell to, sometimes there's people's lives at hand, or you got to build trust with these people, whether it be from the content you put out. I think Raj mentioned it earlier, but being accurate with your content is definitely huge. You want to build that trust, that credibility. And then, from a sales perspective, if, salespeople love to make promises that they sometimes can't keep. So avoiding that, being a salesperson that pulls through on their promises made, and make sure they execute the things that they talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's scientists are still people, right? So remembering that and how important those promises really are. What are your thoughts, Julia?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's all down to a human level. And I don't come from a science background, and we sell scientific software. But at the end of the day, the core value proposition of what we're trying to sell, that is data management, utilizing AI, structuring that data, not having it in silos, that's a fundamental issue that everyone can relate to. It's just how you paint that picture around that value proposition and understanding the ultimate business objective and what people are trying to achieve. I think that has been the easiest way for me as a non-scientist to be able to step into the shoes of a scientist and try to understand how their brains work. I will never understand chemistry to the degree I probably need to, but I think I understand the core issue of messy data enough to be able to resonate with the people that are also struggling with that we are marketing to. But also knowing when I need help, knowing when, okay, there are technical limitations to what I understand. I need to reach out and have someone who is actually a subject matter expert in this, who has a technical background, to be able to piggyback on and create something more substantial that will resonate with the audience. But I don't think that is ever too necessary when you're working on a marketing level to get that much in the weeds, because when you are getting too much in the weeds, you kind of lose people. You're kind of speaking something that the scientists already know. It's good to touch on relevant pain points and understand them, but when marketing starts going too deep in the technicalities of things, it's kind of when you're going to start losing interest, because they already know these things. We're selling a solution, not something that someone already owns.
And I'd like to add one thing too. This has gotten me a long way too. There's been so many times where I've been nervous to ask a question because I don't want to feel like I'm incompetent or I don't know the answer. I think there's something to be said for being genuinely curious about things, asking, hey, how'd you do this? What is this? It's going to feel like a stupid question. Most of the time, it's not a stupid question. Have a genuine intrigue into what that scientist is working on. And you'll often find that they're happy to explain it. People love talking about what they're working on and dumbing it down, so yeah.
Yeah, sharing is caring. Scientists love to share too, and love to educate and teach. So yeah, I don't think there is any stupid question. Anything that helps to engage your customer is a win. Okay, I'd love to invite the audience now to ask any questions of our panelists.
So at our company, I have the exact opposite issue. I've got a whole lot of scientists and none of them want to help with sales. Our director of chemistry has moved into a sales role and he's spectacular, but eventually we are going to need some of our chemists to be a little bit more client facing and a little less hood facing. And so my question for y'all is, what resources or approaches do you think you could recommend to help me make some bench scientists a little more comfortable with sales? I've already tried to reduce the stigma of sales is not pushing and marketing is not manipulation. But if I could find things that would perhaps help them feel more comfortable, I think that my life would be easier, but I think we would also be more successful because our clients, we need people who understand the deep chemistry. So it's kind of like we have to use our chemists. We can't go the other way around. So
I think sometimes when, we have the same thing. We have scientific implementation managers, which is a mouthful. Sometimes they're so busy with their own work and it gets a little disconnected from what marketing does and what those people do, what that team does. So yeah, it is invasive sometimes, but being a little invasive and stepping in and being part of their workflow actively instead of feeling like you're interjecting. Kind of sitting in and shadowing is a little bit less invasive of an approach, but that is a tough one. People are siloed. It's a little uncomfortable, but I think embedding yourself as much as you can into what they're doing versus trying to stop whatever their workflow is definitely a more natural way of gaining that information. So kind of seeing what their calendar is like. I think I'm a huge snoop. I look at everyone's calendars, seeing what kind of meetings they have going on, or asking them what meetings they will have that will be relevant to what you need. But yeah, it does vary on what your need is. If you're asking them to produce a piece of content for you, if you're asking them to speak on something technical, that is definitely a little more of a ask and does take a little more bandwidth. So being a little more persuasive on that regard as far as what you can do that's mutually beneficial, or at least motivating them in a way that'll have them understand why that's so important for not just you, but what the ultimate business is and what they're trying to achieve as well.
Yeah, to add to that too, you might find that the one gentleman that transitioned from being a chemist to now helping on sales, he could be excellent at it. And, there are plenty of people that go from being in PhD programs to then transitioning into more of a commercial position where, they're doing a lot of sales or business development work. Those are a rare breed. Those are really excellent people that are on top of it with their social skills as well as their intellect. Sometimes the answer might be you've got to hire a salesperson, even if that salesperson is coming from selling tech as a background, or selling something that's unrelated to what you have or what you are offering. Sometimes it just needs a salesperson's touch. So hiring the right person to do their job so your scientists can focus on their job can also be a solution. Sometimes it's just hard to, force a chemist to all of a sudden be selling. You might be wondering why they're not, and it's probably just because they're not a good fit for that.
I think it's also a positioning thing, right? There are different components to this big word of being in sales, right? There's consultative selling, there's technical selling, there's ways for the chemist's skill set and deep knowledge to be leveraged, but not necessarily be focused on being super salesy and just price oriented.
No, I think one thing to add to that too is I think also if your end user or your customer is the chemist, talking to your customers directly, talking to your prospects even, and understanding what is the natural sales process here, what are the types of questions that people are asking, and being able to also utilize your customer base to ask them the questions that you can't necessarily get internally maybe. And I think that's the biggest resource you have. I mean, you'll get to ask the questions that you are trying to solve and help people address by directly asking customers who have been through your entire buyer's journey and can be that success case for you guys.
And building off that, talking to prospects you lose out on. Hey, why did you decide to not go with me? What did you like about X competitor over me? I had a personal, I lost a project 6 months ago and, put myself out there. I was vulnerable. I said, hey, what did I do wrong? And just learning, asking those kind of questions, you never know what you're going to uncover. And it's only ultimately going to make you, get better. Obviously stomaching, those screw ups or those mistakes is kind of tough, but there's so much insight to be learned from the people you lose out on, not just your current customers.
Jasmine, I love your point about just having like this plain bare bones Google Doc to share content links, because that's definitely one of the challenges I'm facing now. Sales is always like, where's all the content? How do I find it? And how do we prevent them from just, going to the website and filling out content download forms all the time? So how do you, when you do have a tool, right, that's marketing's pushing, how do you kind of drive that adoption when it's really coming from the marketing side, but it's really meant to enhance the sales process? How do you drive the adoption of that tool and really help, get sales excited about utilizing this new tool?
That's a tough one. Besides holding hands and breathing down their neck when they really don't want it, it's about, again, it's making it visible. I think showing people actually how to use something, showing people, like documenting things. I find every single angle in which you can try to cater to someone's like change management needs, whether it's videos, written documentation, it just has to be done. There are so many, it comes back to people's learning styles. There are people that are visual learners, people are audio learners. It's like setting meetings to go through training and kickoff calls on how this tool works, showing people videos on how it works, writing down steps. I think, unfortunately, that is the case where if you bring on a no tool as a marketer, sales is going to have resistance because adding another set of clicks that they'll have to engage with is going to cause friction, and change management is across the board as far as like any department goes. So just really embedding processes in different formats, and letting those tools kind of live out there and exist, and just showing them the way when they come across with a question, but also being there initially, being there when they need help, or noticing if someone is doing something wrong in a tool, like if someone's inputting something incorrectly into a CRM, if someone's not always coming back to you, asking you why something isn't there, if someone isn't attributing something properly, kind of being there to be patient and being there to guide them through this is how and why this is how you do something, and showing them one-on-one, taking that time to personally show someone one-on-one. But then if something comes up again, recognizing that pattern and then being like, oh, maybe this is something we need to document, or let's record our session together. So hopefully that helps, but it's a lot of different mediums and formats I found is the best way.
Yeah, so great insights on aligning marketing and sales. Maybe you have some insights on stretching that even further to customer success, and maybe eventually looping it back to product development for whatever is then coming next up in your marketing and sales pipeline.
Yeah. I think the one analogy I like to use is always thinking back as far as product goes is, when you're working with product management or development teams goes, is their job is to get a product on the shelf. Marketing's job is to get a product off the shelf and then continue that iteration like throughout cycles. So recognizing that, and also just being that voice, but also having that feedback loop is big. I don't know. That's kind of like a short answer there, but it's just it's similar to working with sales. Getting that feedback from the post-sales cycle is just as important as getting to the pre-sale cycle as far as what the market's going to want and what's going to demand. And then what are these continuous improvement areas that we can work on for our existing customers? It's kind of that balance there.
I'd also add to that and use one of the words that both of you used, transparency. Giving the customer success teams visibility throughout the organization, sales, marketing, product management, service, field service, if you're in an instrument business. So that transparency, I think, is super important, and understanding that each department's voice and touch to the customer is equally important to be shared across the organization. The other is word of mouth marketing. A lot of marketers and salespeople talk about voice of the customer, which to me is sort of a unidirection into the organization, while word of mouth marketing is sort of a two-way street, and encouraging more of the organization to think in that word of mouth marketing type of vibe.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like, we found too, like review sites and directory sites, we'll post our stuff on G2 or Capterra or, those directory listings where customers will write reviews anonymously or publicly. Taking those reviews and looking at those insights too also gives you kind of an unbiased look at what the customers are saying that are both negative and positive about your platform, that can help shape the marketing initiatives, but can also be a great feedback loop to the development team and the product team as well.
Hi, Cynthia Graham Tappan here. I don't really have a question. I just have a comment. I just wanted to thank you all. I very much appreciate this conversation. I think it's really important. I am a sales leader. I'm a former marketer. I think just having sales and marketing in concert is vital. I'm not really familiar with like other dynamics within an organization that needs to be more in sync than sales and marketing. So really value your insights and in this discussion. I think it's very vital. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, yeah, I appreciate that comment. I'd also like to thank Julia and Justin for all their insights and sharing with everybody. Thank you.